So bats, right? I think we can all agree they're pretty cool. Blood-drinking, insect-eating, sonar-using masters of the skies, it's unsurprising that bats capture the imagination of creative types and the curiosity of the more scientific-minded among us. And, true to the eternal rivalry between mammals and every other form of life on this planet, they're locked in an endless battle with birds for ruling the skies. But, and this is hard for me to say as a diehard mammal fanboy, birds are just kinda winning. Birds are both more diverse and more common than bats, and to cap off the avian superiority, they tend to get a lot bigger as well, and I'm here to explain why. Now, there's a lot of variation in both groups, so let's trim the terms a bit so that this video actually gets to the point in under an hour. Bats can be divided into two wide categories: the herbivorous fruit bats and the carnivorous bug-eating bats. The biggest carnivorous bat in the world is one spectral bat, with a wingspan of a good 1 meter and a weight of up to 200 grams. The biggest fruit bat, on the other hand, is the appropriately overdramatically named giant golden-crowned flying fox, weighing in at 1.5 kilograms and with 1.5 meters wingspan. Birds are a little more complicated. The biggest bird today is the 115-kilogram ostrich, but those don't count because we're talking about flying things here. While there's a whole bunch of flying birds that are in a multi-way tie for heaviest flying featherball, most agree that the biggest flying bird of them all is the Andean condor. Now, Andean condors are freaking huge. They weigh up to 15 kilograms and have a wingspan of over 3 meters. Oh, but that's not all. Oh no. The biggest bird that has ever flown was an absolute unit of a Thanksgiving special by the name of Argentavis. Living between 9 and 5 million years ago in South America, this sky demon had a 6-meter wingspan, could weigh 100 kilograms, and could look a grown man in the eye. So, How is it that the largest flying bird had a wingspan 4 times the size of the largest bat and weigh nearly 100 times as much? Scientists have said definitely that bats could be the size of giant birds based on their muscular and skeletal anatomy, which is a deep rabbit hole that we are not getting into today. So what's the deal? It comes down to 2 things mostly: food and niche partitioning. I mean, there's also a reproduction in there, but that's a really complicated topic, so we're not going to do that today. Okay. While herbivores tend to be larger than carnivores in most situations, the opposite is true when regarding flying animals. See, the bigger herbivores get, the bulkier they need to become to accommodate the digestive systems they need to digest low-nutrient plant matter, and they also need to eat more of it. Flying creatures must subsist on calorically dense food because they can't support a herbivore's massive digestive system in the air without becoming too heavy to fly. Now, the fruit that bats eat is calorically dense, but plants don't make much of it when compared to, say, leaves. There just isn't enough fruit sitting around for them to sustain a big body size. There's also reasons for keeping carnivores small. Niche partitioning. I'm going to pretend you haven't heard about it in every educational video on YouTube for now. Niche partitioning basically boils down to, when you're good at something, evolution usually causes you to double down and specialize in that niche. Say, being a burrowing herbivore, or a fast-running carnivore. It also means that you're usually better than anyone else at that one thing, and that 2 different creatures can't occupy the same evolutionary niche. Carnivorous bats are small prey specialists, a lifestyle that demands they stay small too. Big birds, on the other hand, are large prey specialists and carrion eaters, a source of food that allows them way more food. What it ultimately boils down to is that birds are a much older group of animals than bats. Birds have been around since the late Jurassic, a good 150 million years ago, while the oldest bats we know about date back to only 55 million years ago, to the early Eocene. Side note, bats are probably a good deal older than that 55 million year marker since they don't fossilize very well, but that's still a buffer margin of nearly 100 million years, so don't get your hopes up too much. Essentially, birds monopolized the big prey eater niche before bats ever came around, so for bats to switch to hunting big creatures, they'd get too large for eating insects, while they wouldn't be able to break into the large prey specialist niche by virtue of birds being better at it, since they already specialize in that area. Birds win by being first, essentially. So there you have it. Why birds can get huge but bats can't. Big birds are flying carnivores that appeared before bats did and held on to the niche of big, flying flesh eaters the whole time. Couldn't be simpler. Goodbye. But now we have a different problem. Have you ever heard of an obscure group of creatures called the pterosaurs? They are quite literally in a weight class of their own. with the biggest of them, Quetzalcoatlus and Hatzegopteryx, being more than twice the mass of Argentavis, each being a good 250 kilograms or more. So now, why couldn't birds get as big as pterosaurs? This difference is made even more crazy by the fact that Argentavis probably couldn't even take off on its own, had to drop off a cliff or wait for a strong wind, while the biggest pterosaurs could just launch themselves no problem. Big birds have trouble getting themselves into the air, yet pterosaurs didn't seem to struggle at all. How can pterosaurs get so much bigger while also keeping their ability to take off on their own? Well, the answer is arm day. Birds are bipedal. They use their forelimbs for flying only, and their hind limbs for walking only. So if they want to get bigger, they need to bulk up their legs to carry the weight, but then they need stronger wings to carry their heavier legs. But since their wings get bigger, they need stronger legs. See where this is going? A bird bulking up is shackled by diminishing returns on their dead weight legs. Pterosaurs sidestep this problem by being quadrupedal. They walk on the same limbs they use to fly, so stronger wings also mean stronger legs to walk on without any of that bulk being dead weight in the air. They simply aren't affected by diminishing returns in the same way, and that is why they can be giants. I hear birds are still coping and seething with jealousy to this day. Hey, so if you've gotten this far in the video, I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you so much. This is the first real crack I've taken at making a long-form, entertaining, and educational video, so thank you so much for sticking with me. I had a lot of fun making it, and if you want to subscribe to the channel, I hope I can make more content like this for you in the future. Second on the agenda is, I don't really know how to do outros, so goodbye.